I was recently talking with an artist friend of mine, and they were lamenting over the fact that they were having to write yet another one of those artist statements. Those are those self promotional pieces that we're asked to write as artists to accompany a piece of artwork or perhaps to be a promotional piece for a gallery show. And they talked about how difficult it was to do that self promotion, particularly given where they grew up, where we grew up in what is known as Appalachia, where self promotion is not only frowned upon, it can be downright dangerous. As we talked, I was reminded of a line that I heard a lot as a child and young adult. Who do you think you are? I was usually the prelude to the hickory switch. The hickory switch eventually went away, but the question remained until my mother's last breath. And the lectures that followed were actually more brutal than the hickory switch, because the pain in the switch would fade quick. The words did not. Who do you think you are? What I realized as I grew up was that was the occasion when I had inadvertently, or perhaps sometimes intentionally, challenged my mother's authority. And the pushback was strong. A question of authority. That's a big deal these days. We don't talk about it in those terms, but it's a real question. Who do we give authority to? Who are they that we allow to make decisions for us? Who gets to tell us what to read, what to wear, who to date, what to do with our bodies? Who tells us what to watch? Who tells us the news? Who do we believe? Who do we trust? Whose authority do we listen to? The question of authority is not only a question for us these days, it was a question in the early church. Who has the authority to teach, to preach? Who has the authority to push back against Rome? Perhaps that's why the gospel writers spend so much time dealing with Jesus' authority, and no one more so than Mark in his gospel. In fact, from the very beginning until the end, it is a question of who this Jesus is. It's a question that the disciples wrestle with. It's the question that the followers wonder about. It's the question that threatens the religious establishment and the government. Who is this Jesus? From the very beginning of Mark's gospel, the question is raised. He's teaching one day in the synagogue in Capernaum, and the folks go wild. Who is this? He teaches like one with authority, not like our scribes and Pharisees. Wow, where does he get this stuff? Who is he? The authority question brackets this brief little story. They ask the same question at the end. Who is this Jesus? And in between comes the meat of the story. For it seems that in the synagogue there is a man with an unclean spirit. And it cries out because it recognizes the authority of Jesus. An authority that is threatening to the spirit's existence. Get away from me, Jesus. Have nothing to do with me. I know who you are. You are the Holy One of God. It's very interesting in Mark's Gospel. It's always the evil spirits that understand who Jesus is because they know his power. The rest of the world, they always get it wrong. Even the disciples screw it up. But those most threatened by his authority, oh, they know it. And their pushback is great. But Jesus simply says, get out of there. And the spirit leaves the man. Which raises that question again. Who is this Jesus that even the spirits obey him? Who is this Jesus? We hear at Jesus' baptism the answer from God. This is my Son, the beloved. But it's an intimate, one-on-one. Who the rest of the world see who Jesus is? How do we know? Where's his authority come from? He not only casts out evil spirits, he heals the sick. He calms the waves. That's pretty big stuff. But it's not until the end of the gospel that we really get the answer. What the evil spirits know from the very beginning. The Roman centurion at the foot of the cross exclaims, folks, this is the Son of God. But by now, we've got a picture of what that looks like. It is the one who comes bringing healing and hope. It is the one who risks getting down and dirty in the muck and mire of our existence, who wades into the midst of our griefs, our pains, our anxieties, our fears, all the crazy stuff we get ourselves into, our relationships, our failures, our dreams. This is the Jesus with authority. The authority that is willing to stand by for us, that is willing to die for us, day in and day out, in all those little deaths that we put him through and put ourselves through. That's authority. That's the only authority that I'm willing to risk my neck for. Who's willing to get down and dirty in my life? So far, there's only one. And that's who I will follow until the end of my days. Amen.